Alright, everybody, I'm putting on my dad voice again because it's time for us to have a little talk. About what? Well, I'm glad you asked. There's a little passion project in the theaters that just recently released, and it's been making its rounds. Not only that, but it's been receiving near universal praise. That's an 8.2 on IMDb, an 84 on Metacritic, and a 98 on Rotten Tomatoes. You may have heard of it. It's called Sinners, and it stars Michael B. Jordan, Miles Caton, and Haley Steinfeld. It was directed by Ryan Coogler, who also did Black Panther. I'll hold on to that detail and come back to it later, if that's okay with you. The reason I would like to talk about this movie is that it is a film about blackness, first and foremost. I want to tell you that this is the cinema equivalent of a Negro spiritual, and need you to take that analogy seriously. Not only that, but the film is mostly an original concept with the caveat that vampires are hardly new to cinema, but they're implemented interestingly enough here. I would also like to point out that here on YouTube, just about anyone who's anyone has weighed in on the movie seeking its praises, as is more than well deserved. Hell, even I did a video on it, and I'm sure I'll do another one somewhere down the line. However, there are a few notable absences. Geeks and Gamers, Neurotic, and The Critical Drinker, amongst others in their particular niche, have all been too busy, I suppose, to get around to talking about it. Wonder why that is, though. I could swear that these guys all care so much about Hollywood and the integrity of filmmaking. I mean, they've each got no less than 3 videos about the recent Snow White movie and how it spells doom for modern filmmaking, so I have to wonder, if they could be so intense about movies that are agreed upon to be bad, why can't they muster anything to say about movies that are agreed upon to be good? That can't be right, though. I mean, Drinker just did a video on that movie Warfare, right? I mean, what's the difference between that and Sinners? Oh, Warfare stars a bunch of white guys. I see now. I'm done being facetious for now. What I really want to talk about is the glaring, blatantly obvious lack of a journalistic integrity on display here. They can sit and complain about G20, a movie that I've never heard of that just so happens to star a black woman, because it's easy pickings. But complimenting a well-crafted movie about a black man just defies their very being, even though it would be just as easy to do. They don't have to go against the grain, so why the silence? If you ask me, it's because the success of the film directly flies in the face of their go woke, go broke mantra that they throw around constantly. They insist that any movie, game, or television show that centers around a character who happens to be a minority is doomed to fail simply due to that fact, regardless of whether that idea has any merit or not, and without regard to the quality of the product in question, or any evidence in support of that idea in general. For example, take Wicked. Drinker, Geeks and Gamers, and countless other Grift channels were engagement farming the shit out of this movie with their go woke, go broke nonsense over the fact that the Wicked Witch would be played by a black woman, despite that she was still green in the film, which is ultimately all that matters regarding her appearance. I saw dozens of videos on my feed about how this film would crash and burn, but then it came out. And it was not only a critical success, but it even turned a 500% profit. What happened after that? Suddenly, they all stopped making videos on it at around the same time. But on the other hand, you have the recent Snow White live-action remake, which released recently and predictably bombed at the box office. So obviously, the answer is wokeness, because Snow White is a little bit browner this time. Nothing to do with her just not being the most popular princess in general, or people having a strongly negative opinion of Gal Gadot at the moment, or maybe a general burnout of these live-action remakes because they're not always successful. But if it truly is because of wokeness, then I'd like you to explain to me why Cruella, Peach Dragon, Lady and the Tramp, Pinocchio, and Mulan all disappointed at the box office, while The Little Mermaid managed to turn a profit, and Aladdin made $1 billion despite both of those movies having black characters who didn't used to be that. That's truly the most aggravating element when it comes to looking at media discourse through this lens. It completely distracts from the bigger picture and whether the piece of media in question is even any good to begin with or worth engaging in. For example, Blue Beetle came out in August of 2023. I, and many other people who saw it, found it to be a mostly inoffensive, enjoyable popcorn action flick. Unfortunately, it bombed. Most likely because WB and DC effectively told the entire world that the movie didn't matter because they were rebooting the cinematic universe anyway. So why would people go watch it? Especially right after Barbie and Oppenheimer came out. You could then ask, of course, by that logic, why did The Flash and Aquaman do so well when Blue Beetle didn't? Well, The Flash had Batman in it, and he was all over the marketing. I get the feeling that if Batman is on your poster, you're gonna make some money no matter what happens, regardless of the quality of the film. I mean, BVS sniffed $1 billion for crying out loud. As for Aquaman, Christmas is a good time to drop a family-friendly movie. What can I say? See, what I'm trying to communicate is that if we look at the world through these goggles, it blinds you to the reality of the situation. In truth, movies either succeed or flop for a myriad of reasons, and it very rarely ever comes down to one factor. We can't just say that minority equals flop when the Black Panther movies made $2 billion between them, Barbie made $1 billion, Jordan Peele's horror films have all been widely successful, Everything Everywhere All at Once was a smash hit, and Aquaman, which starred a Polynesian man, made $1 billion. Because then you have to assert that Top Gun Maverick, Oppenheimer, Spider-Man No Way Home, Deadpool & Wolverine, and Avatar 2 all made $1 billion, or around there, or even more, just because they started a white guy. But then what about Mickey 17, Morbius, Shazam Fury of the Gods, and Joker 2? Maybe bad word of mouth, lack of advertising, and general disinterest? Could it perhaps work both ways? No, because then that would require admitting that the world isn't black and white, so to speak. Rules for thee, but none for me. The way these people operate allows them to have a backdoor out of any situation in which they could possibly be proven wrong by just not acknowledging it. Wicked made a bunch of money? Ignore it. Alien Romulus was a success? I must have had my eyes closed. Sinners is breaking records and everyone agrees that it was incredible? Never heard of it. These people are not film critics, they're not journalists. They're outrage merchants. They're grifters. They build their entire business model on selling you a certain point of view that is designed to make you angry. They want you to feel a certain way so that you keep coming back for more regardless of if they happen to get it wrong or not. And they benefit from having no standards, no accountability, no obligations, and no spine. If they truly cared about film, original stories, and uplifting good movies, rather than just fabricating scenarios to get angry at, then they would have the balls to hop on the microphone and say it's a good goddamn movie. But that would require admitting that they're wrong. At least sometimes. Or they could go against the grain and say it's bad. That would at least demonstrate consistency in their belief system, and you can almost respect it, almost. But it's as if they're afraid to do that either. Maybe they know that they'd be opening themselves up to a world of trouble, so to say, if they were to do that. Now, I watch almost every review Birdman or Jeremy Johns put out. They don't get to every single movie that comes out because after all, they're human. I don't see every movie that comes out either, nor do I review every movie that I see. However, there's no way anybody on this platform who reviews or criticizes movies missed this one. It demonstrates a clear, unmistakable insult to journalism and criticism. It's honestly the same way that I've come to feel about Chris Stuckman, but in the opposite direction. And if it isn't obvious to you by now, just from this alone, that these people only exist to prey on your emotions, not to uphold any journalistic integrity, I'd be glad to revisit this topic again in the future. For now, though, that's all I got for you. Thanks for watching. Check out the Patreon if you feel so inclined. I'll see you guys later.